Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special episode of Ethereal Edge. Today, we come together to honor the remarkable life of Dr. Gladys McGarey, a 103-year-old beacon of light who recently left this earthly plane. We were honored and privileged to have had the opportunity to interview her and capture her wisdom, her warmth, and her vibrant spirit. Dr. Gladys was not just an extraordinary individual. She was a testament to the beauty of human resilience and kindness. Her infectious joy and zest for life radiated through every story she shared, illuminating our hearts and our minds. Though our time with her was brief, it was filled with profound moments that made a lasting impact on all who had the opportunity to meet her, even if only for a short while. In her 103 years on this earth, Dr. Gladys was a pioneer in holistic medicine and dedicated herself to humanitarian work across the globe to uplift and heal those in need. Her commitment to making the world a better place resonated deeply with everyone around her. Her motto, "Be glad," was not just a phrase. It was a guiding principle that she embodied in every interaction, inspiring all of us to embrace gratitude and positivity in our own lives. As we listen to this tribute, let us remember Dr. Gladys as a shining star whose legacy of love, integrity, and service will never be forgotten. We invite you to immerse yourself in her stories and her wisdom, and feel her heart and energy that she so generously shared with us. Thank you for joining us in celebrating the incredible life of Dr. Gladys. May her light continue to shine brightly in all of our hearts.
And I was so severely dyslexic that I couldn't read or write. I had to repeat first grade. So I was the class dummy. But I was going to live the rest of my life in this condition, which was so broken and so ugly when you're stuck in that place. But you don't have to be. You can look for the light. And when you start looking for the light, it's always there.
We are here today with Dr. Gladys McGarey. She is internationally recognized as the mother of holistic medicine. She was the first medical doctor to utilize acupuncture in the United States. She has received numerous honors and awards, including the Humanities Award for Outstanding Service to Mankind. And we are so happy to have her here with us today and very excited to talk with her. So, welcome, Dr. Gladys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and I'm excited too.
Let's get this out on the table right away. A lot of people think it's rude to ask a lady her age, but in this case, I consider it an honor to ask you this question.
All
So, would
right.
you please, for the audience, and drum roll please, let us know, how old are you?
I'm 102.
Amazing.
I'm 103, I forgot.
We have to get that extra year in there. We can't forget about that one.
In November this year, I'll be 104.
Unbelievable. That is just incredible and amazing, and I am just so privileged to have the honor to talk with you. So, thank you again for being with us. So, I just wanna ask you, Dr. Gladys, what do you say about those maybe I know, as I mentioned, some people don't like to share their age. What would you say to somebody about that if they say they're a little embarrassed to maybe say how old they are? How would you approach that?
I'd say, "Oh, stop being foolish."
That's what I say too.
Yeah,
I think it's something to be proud of.
yes. I mean, be glad for that. The actual factual thing is that you've lived that long, and wow.
What a privilege. And it's funny, I was thinking about this when I was preparing to talk with you today. And I thought, how interesting is it that we're so excited to share our age up until about 21, right? That's the goal that we try to get to is 21. And then from that point forward, we're embarrassed to tell anybody our age in our 20s, in our 30s, in our 50s. But then it becomes socially acceptable again once we hit retirement age because we're all excited that we get to retire and we actually get to get discounts on things. So usually around that time, we start telling people again what our age is. But I think it should be that way throughout life, right? We should just be very grateful and privileged to be able to share our age at any time.
It's like I have great grandchildren, and they're real happy to be 5 years old, except my little Maggie May. When she turned 5, she sat at the birthday and began crying at the party. And they asked her why, and she says, "'Cause I don't have any 4s left."
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that. Yeah, I think I cried when I turned 50 because I didn't have any 4s left either.
Me too.
Okay. Yes, we all feel that way.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Gladys, I want to ask you this. One thing I have heard you talk about that you've mentioned before in other interviews, and which fascinated me, by the way, is that I believe you helped to create the word holistic. Is that true?
When we started the American Holistic Medical Association, it took us 2 years to decide how to spell it because we were looking for the word that was trying to say what we were trying to say, which was health, healing, and holy, so that it had to be with an H. So, we finally found and we were able to do it, but it took a long time for us to realize that we really were speaking about something quite deeper in our human aspect, in our aspect of humanity, than was being it wasn't just diet and exercise and all that kind of thing. There was a lot more to it than that, and so we had to get a word that actually spelled it with an H.
Are there any secrets to how you got to 103, now turning 104? Like, what would you, if you were going to give a secret, or even, what would it be?
I'm happy to be alive every day.
Oh.
I mean, if I have a friend, a dear friend, and she called me, and she's not quite as old as I am. She called me the other day, and she says, I wake up in the morning and I say, "Oh, not another day." And I'm oh, that's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, wow, okay, what's today?" And it's a matter of having something to live for.
Yeah.
And at any age we can find it, because if we don't have anything else to live for, people around us are suffering that way too, and we can help them. And if it's sort of like I have a visual of me walking along with a nice flashlight on a dark path. The only thing I can see is 1 foot at a step ahead. Except as I'm going along, sometimes I see a little flicker of light over here. And if I add my flashlight to that light, it becomes great. The little flicker becomes great. So I think it's that kind of a attitude that's looking to help what needs help around us, because there's always something, even if it's a dog or a plant, that needs help. There's something around us that needs help. Let me tell you a story about a friend of mine, because this says this. He was a family friend, James. He used to come to our house for dinner and all. And then he moved into dementia, and he just didn't really know who we were or anything. So we found him in a lovely home and lovely room, and everything was just fine for him. But he just, he couldn't do anything else. So one day I went and I took him a little plant. I had a little plant in a pot. And I said to him, I said, James, this is your plant, and you'll love it and take care of it Now, he doesn't know what I'm talking about as far as I can tell. And, but it needs water, it needs sunshine, but it's your plant and you need to love it and take care of it. I talked to him for a little bit like that. And then I left. And a week later, I came back to see him and he met me at the door and he said, "Magic, magic." And I said, "What, what?" And he takes me over to the air conditioning box and he says, "Box." And I said, "Yeah, it's a nice box." He says, "Push this button, everything gets cool." Plants like that. I push this button, everything gets hot. Plant doesn't like it. And all of a sudden I realized that he was connecting with the plant who was connecting with him. And they had a relationship going that was pure love and life. I was so thrilled. Another story very close to this one is I have a friend who's a physician here in town. He works with student physicians. And he was going to meet one of the students at a patient's door. And when he got there, she said she had the chart, and he said, "Well, let's go in." And she says, "We don't have to." And he said, "Wait, what do you mean we don't have to?" She said, "He has Alzheimer's. He won't understand anything we say." And my friend, who is a psychiatrist, said to her, "No, wait a minute. There are two people in that room. One is the patient, and the other one is his wife, who's going to understand everything that we say, take it in with love, and lovingly transfer it into action so that it becomes a loving process, and he will get the work done that we need to have done. And besides that, we need to touch them." And it's that reality that is our human essence is so important, that the actual touch is so important too.
I think human touch and a connection is so important, and I think you've talked about this in your book as well, is that right? You include this as one of the 6 pillars of life.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that, about the different, pillars that you have listed in the book?
Well, actually, life and love have to move together. And along with those that I have in the book, I have 5 L's. And the 5 L's are that life and love are they are integral parts of each other. The third L is laughter. Laughter with love is joy and happiness. The fourth is labor. With love is bliss. It's why you do what you do. It's why I do what I do. It's what makes our hearts sing. It's that inner ability to work with the energy and become part of it, and it becomes lovingly reaching to others. And then the fifth one is listening. Listening without love is empty sound. You just don't hear anything. But listening with love is understanding. So these 5 L's give me kind of a platform from which to structure the things that I'm thinking about and doing and working with, and who I am.
If somebody was to really lean into all of those different pillars, that would also help them to live a longer, happier life.
Absolutely, you have to have something to live for. It's that, who am I? The very essence of who I am is important. But if I don't recognize that and don't recognize the importance of me, nobody's going to recognize it.
And Dr. Gladys, what are some life lessons that would benefit a young person to learn early in their life? Is there anything that comes to mind for that?
Oh, yes. Everything's a teacher. See, I think we've got it wrong in our uh, idea of what medicine's all about, because medicine, the way it's practiced, is we try to get rid of disease and make pain not so bad. But if we can understand, I don't want to get rid of the disease. I want to understand what that disease is telling me. What is that my body is telling me.
If you had any advice to give to somebody who might be in a dark moment that would help them bridge the gap to a lighter place or make them feel a little bit more connected, what would that be?
Let me tell you a story about my life. When I was turning 70, my husband of 46 years asked for a divorce. Now, we had created the American Holistic Medical Association together. We'd raised 6 awesome children together. We had, you know, the whole work that we had done all these years were work that we had done in love, in care, and it was so I was broken. I was shattered. I saw nothing in the future that had any hope or anything. And I was in my car driving home from work and thinking, okay, I'm going home to an empty house. Only the dog is there. And so I don't have anything. I have nothing. It's all gone. And I'm screaming and yelling in the car. And it was, it was, it was so ugly. I mean, it was so broken and terrible that it just was, it was bad. Nobody, I finally pulled over to the side of the road and stopped my car. And I got out of the car and I looked at my car and I looked at myself and I said, ooh, this is awful. I don't want to live like this. Or do I want to live like this? What do I want to do? Am I going to? And I stood there on the side of the road by myself, asking me these questions about whether I was going to live the rest of my life in this condition, which was so broken and so ugly. I mean, it was really ugly. And then words came into my head. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. There was my name. And I thought, oh, okay. So I got back in the car and I went home and I talked to the dog and told him all that was going on. And the next day, I took the license plate off the back of my car and put a license plate on that said, be glad. So that every time I got into my car, I saw be glad. And every time I was in line in traffic, the people behind me would see it. So it was a
Yeah.
message
Yeah.
of not just for myself, but for the work that I was doing and that I was here to do. And so instead of just getting stuck in that awful place, and I can understand how people feel when they're stuck in that place, but you don't have to be.
No.
You can look for the light. And when you start looking for the light, it's always there. There's always light there. If you don't look for it, you'll never find it. But if you look for it, you'll find it. Somebody will say something. Somebody will come along. A little kid will come up and pull your hand, or you'll see an amazing plant that'll, something will happen if you start looking for it. But if you don't, you're not going to see it.
I love that story that you just told
Yeah.
because I've actually not heard you mention this before, and I think it's important for people to hear that because one
Mhm.
might look at you and say, "Wow, this person has lived to this age and they've had this amazing career and this amazing life, and they never have anything that goes wrong. Their life is perfect." And I think people have misconceptions when they see other people. Everyone has their own burdens, everyone has their own challenge. And when we share that, we allow others to share, their own defeats and be able to rise up from that. So to hear you tell that story is much appreciation for that. And I think that's a message a lot of people need to hear.
You don't just get over these dark places.
Yeah.
You- People tell you get over it. You have to live through them. If you live through them, you get the message from them, and you see the light, and you work with it. But if you just try to get over it, uh,
Yeah.
you just get stuck. You stick it in your pocket, and it's still there. You
Yeah.
know. So don't try to get over it. Understand it. Try to understand it. There is always another aspect to it.
Dr. Gladys, I have heard you mention before that you didn't find your voice until the young age of 93. So I found that very interesting because you have had a very accomplished career. So why do you feel that 93 was the age that you discovered your voice?
When I was a kid and I started school, I was it was discovered that I was dyslexic. And I was so severely dyslexic that I couldn't read or write. I
Wow.
had to repeat first grade. So I was the class dummy. The kids made fun of me and all of that. So I started out my schooling as being broken. I was in school, not at home. At home, it was another story. In fact, I my first 2 years in school were very, very damaging. But my third year, my teacher saw something in me that the other one hadn't, and maybe I couldn't read or write, but I could talk. And so, so she made me class governor. And
Oh,
so I had the opportunity when we were having a class play that had to be put on for the whole student body. And it was called The Frog Jumped Over the Pond was the play. And I was the frog because first of all, I was bigger than anybody else in the class because I had lived an extra year and all that stuff. So here I am. And my mother made me a frog suit, and we had a pan of water on in the stage. And with great confidence, I walked out on the stage because I knew I could do this. And when I looked out into the audience, I saw my two oldest brothers on the first row, and it threw me off my step just enough so that instead of jumping over the pond, I landed in it. So there I was, standing broken in that the suit is fading because my mother cheap paint. It's dye. The suit is fading. I'm crying. I can't move. The audience is in hysterics. They're just absolutely cracking up laughing, and I can't move. The teacher has to come and take me off the stage. So we're at home at dinner, and my brothers are telling mom what a great day it was and how funny that was and how everybody was laughing. And I was trying to give them the devil's eye, and they weren't looking at me. But finally, my mother really pulled me through these things. She finally stopped and she says, "All right, boys, now you've had your fun. What can we as a family do to help Gladys if she gets into something like this in the future, to have people laughing with her, not at her?" And that twist that my mother put on things has helped me to get through all kinds of things because I'm still dyslexic and I still stumble sometimes when I get up onto a platform. I still do these things that are, you know, ah, but if I can actually take those I've got the audience in my hand before I ever start speaking. I can say something like, "Oh, I'm such a drama queen," and go right into my talk, and and so it's a matter of using what it is to work for you and not against you. It's because it's all energy anyway, and it's not good or bad energy. Well, it is, but I mean, it's how we use it that makes it good or bad energy.
I think sprinkling a little humor always helps, no matter
Oh,
what the situation is.
absolutely.
Now, I've heard you talk also about your beliefs or your thoughts on having dogs in classrooms, and I'd love to hear a little more about that.
Thank you. I'm passionate about this. I think it's so sad that these young 18, 19-year-old boys are killing other people and then themselves too. I don't think they have had an experience with real deep love. I think they don't know what what it feels like. And I think they don't know what death feels like because they watch on the TV that hero comes back, he's there the next day, and he's the next day. So they have not experienced these things, and so they're working from ignorance with an empty hole in their being. And I think that if we had, if instead of giving teachers guns, have a guardian dog in the classroom, a dog that is trained. We have dogs trained for healing in hospitals and all kinds of things. Why not have a guardian dog so that that dog, if a child comes in and he's had something gone wrong at home and he's very sad, that dog will find that out and be with him. So what the boy or the child will learn is about love. He'll learn to love that dog, and in the process of loving that dog will protect him. So I grew up with dogs. I grew up in North India, in the jungles of North India, and these were hunting dogs. My parents were missionaries who took their medical work out into the jungles. But the dogs that we had were the amazing black Labradors who were hunting dogs. But oh, they were the most loving dogs. And I always had a dog with me. There was a dog was trailing us when we were going any place.
So, Gladys, kind of switching gears, I know you've done a lot of work helping people in different parts of the world. How has those experiences for you developed the beliefs and understandings that you have of humanity?
Well, I grew up in a family who understood these things because that's what my parents did. So my brother asked me to if I would go to Afghanistan because he had been working with the uh, Afghani people. My brother Carl gets me to go to Afghanistan because I was just ready to retire, and these Afghani women were dying with maternal mortality rate was higher in Afghanistan than any other place in the world. And they couldn't find out why because they had no access to the women. They weren't allowed to talk to the women. The husbands wouldn't let anybody. So, anyway, I was delighted to do that. And so we had two women come from 10 different villages, and we spent a whole week alone in a little house in the Bamiyan district of Afghanistan. And we told them what happens. They had no idea what happened during a pregnancy. What they were taught, what we found out, was that when they got pregnant, they weren't allowed to have any yogurt or eggs or carrots, calcium producing foods. So all the muscles in their body were cramping because of lack of calcium. And then when they went into labor, they weren't given anything to eat or drink. So now got a mother who can't push. She has no strength to do that. So somebody from the outside has to push that baby out. So you end up with a prolapsed uterus. You've got all kinds of fistulae. It was so sad. But these 32 women took what we had to say, and I explained our anatomy and what was in there. And anyway, it was a joyous, wonderful time I spent with those women. And when they went home, they taught. Now, women who learn things teach it all over the world. If you learn something, you're going to teach it. And this is what happened to them. And within about 6 months, the statistics were changing.
And what's next on your bucket list?
Well, actually, I had never had talking to people around the world on my bucket list. But look at what's happening. I'm in such awe of where life is. This trip that I'm taking, that's called my lifetime, is taking me, is just awesome. And so I'm really glorying in that. Around the world, there are people who are understanding the things that I've written about in the book, and they're asking questions about it, and it's becoming something that has a life of its own.
We are definitely living in amazing times, and I can only imagine what you've seen over your lifetime. And as we mentioned before we started today, that so much has changed even with technology in the last 10 to 20 years. What's coming up next? So it's interesting to see what's on the horizon.
Absolutely. It's exciting.
And so as we wrap up, Dr. Gladys, what words of wisdom do you have for anyone listening that you can leave us with?
Don't be afraid to love. When you do that, use it freely, because love and life have to grow together. And as they grow together, the world changes. So let's have a good time and live life, and be conscious that the kind, tender, loving process that I'm talking about is what is really, really needed in the world. Like the way you handle a small baby, it's that kind of tender, loving care. Let's reach out to each other and do that.